All right, so let's talk about Meta because they are not sleeping on AI. They actually just dropped some major AI updates, and the biggest one is they're releasing an AI assistant. So think of this like ChatGPT within Instagram, Messenger, and WhatsApp. And this assistant has some pretty interesting features that are worth noting. First, it's conversational, just like ChatGPT or Claude or any of the others. It's going to connect to the internet via Microsoft Bing, and it will also generate images like Midjourney or Dolly. Now, here's the kicker though. Right now, it is not trained on any public user data from Meta's different social networks and apps. But reporters at The Verge have kind of hinted, based on their interviews with the company, that it very well could be trained on that data very soon. And I think this is really interesting if they're right, because if you think about all the data that Meta is sitting on, we're talking things like billions of Facebook posts, messages, comments, Instagram photos, feeds, and reels, and of course, WhatsApp conversations. I mean, if you imagine an AI tool that can interact with all this starts to unlock some really, really fascinating AI use cases across social media and probably business and life at large. Now, also, in addition to this assistant, Meta announced some other AI features of note. You'll be able to soon create AI stickers. Stickers are existing functionality right now across some of the platforms. AI will be able to help you generate those. You'll be able to edit images with AI on Instagram. Interestingly, they've noted that these images will be tagged to indicate that AI was used on them. And they're also releasing what they're kind of calling AI characters, which are these AI chatbots that have personalities that are informed in some cases by celebrities like Mr. Beast, Snoop Dogg, and Paris Hilton. So, first up, Paul, like how important are these updates for users at large and also kind of businesses that are marketing on Facebook or Instagram?
Yeah, first, the thing that jumped out to me is I think we're officially shifted from metaverse to AI at Meta. So if you recall, they changed their name to Meta. Facebook is still, the social platform, but they were all in, and rumor was they'd spent like $10 billion on the metaverse, and it just hadn't delivered. And from the outside, you look and it's like, but they have this amazing research lab, like run by Jan LeCun and others, and we knew that they had all this AI capability, but they were really Zuckerberg was very much focused on the metaverse. And I think, the ChatGPT moment woke Zuckerberg up as well. And they are all in. Now, it's not like they're abandoning the metaverse. Just this week, Lex Friedman
Yeah.
had a podcast with Zuckerberg where they were virtually, in like these very photorealistic images of each other and interacting. So if you haven't seen that, just Lex Friedman's a podcaster. He interviewed Zuckerberg in the metaverse with like the most advanced form of the technology they have. So it's not like they're abandoning the metaverse completely, but I think they have made the full on shift to really leverage all the data and AI capabilities and talent that they have at Meta, which was the right business decision. Um, the other thing I found fascinating is they are all of a sudden very friendly with Microsoft. So the fact that Meta's technology is going to find its way into Microsoft is interesting on a lot of levels. One, just that they're collaborating, which is interesting competitively for Google, that those two are working together. For OpenAI, who obviously Microsoft put 10 billion into, it seems like Microsoft is really starting to hedge their bets, not against OpenAI, but that they're not reliant solely on OpenAI. So now you're going to have Meta AI being able to be infused into there. And then rumor is that Microsoft is also starting to build their own smaller models to compete with GPT-4, so they're not as reliant on it from a cost standpoint. It costs a lot of money to use GPT-4. So anyway, so that was interesting to me. We also didn't address this, but they in these announcements also talk about Emu, which is their image generation technology. So that'll compete with Dolly 3 and Midjourney. That's another element of it. But I think the biggest thing from a business perspective is their distribution. They
Mm.
have these applications that are so essential, so interwoven into our consumer lives and our business lives that you start to step back and try and think of all. And this is where I was saying like last Wednesday, where I was just like, my mind was on overload. When you start to look at the implications for all the different platforms that they have, and then into the training data they have and what they can do with that. So like, for example, if we think about Inflection Pi, which is able to, they want it to be more of a personal assistant and to get to know you and to talk to you in a more informal way. We just talked about ChatGPT and its voice capabilities and being able to have conversations. Like you highlighted, Mike, if you have all of that data from how people actually communicate with each other and how they talk and comment and in videos, and you can train these models on that stuff, that's where you start to imagine like, wow, maybe Meta takes the lead on this capability if they build the right things. And then their play to do it through characters like familiar characters or, influencers, celebrities. Um, it becomes really interesting, also very concerning. Like I start to think about the negative ramifications of this and how these things go off the guardrails. And that's why I said like it was just a lot. Like last week for me was personally a lot to process. Um, the other thing I'll say real quickly is character.ai. I think you mentioned them. That company came out of so in 2017, we've talked about the attention is all you need paper from Google, which invented the transformer architecture. That's the foundation of GPT, generative pre-trained transformer. One of the authors of that paper started character.ai, so a former Google person. And that's what character AI does. Like you can go and interact with all these different, celebrities, experts, thought leaders, entrepreneurs. And so I think that Rob Tao's article I mentioned, I think he brought up like maybe Meta buys character dot AI.
Hmm.
So lots of interesting ramifications on this one.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned character.ai because people don't know, we don't talk about it a ton, but it's like one of the most used AI tools out there, according to some of the data in terms of like daily and monthly active users. And people apparently love having in-depth conversations with chatbots that have personalities that either mimic, real people, alive or dead, or fictional characters. It sounds like that's one of the directions Meta is also going. Do you think we could see a significant portion of social media conversations happening with AI moving forward instead of people?
I mean, it's sure possible. I got asked the question in one of my talks in the last 2 weeks about like people having relationships with their AI.
Hmm.
I was like, yeah, that's happening already. And I certainly think you could get to the point where you just start to trust these interactions. And maybe you can, and I think that's what Meta's going to enable is like you can build whatever you want. Like build me an AI agent that's an expert in business law and has, background in finance because as an entrepreneur, I just need somebody to talk to about this stuff.
Mm.
And I would imagine you're going to be able to kind of like create your own characters, if that's what they're going to call them. I don't know if that's what's going to stick as like the name. But again, like you look at the technology and the advancements on the surface, and it's like, oh, that's interesting. Here's the ways we could use it. But the more interesting thing is to actually stop and ponder what are the innovative ways this will be applied. And that's what I start to think about is, you know, and then you get into like licensing deals, like Steve Jobs. Like, what if you want Steve Jobs as an actual like advisor? I know
Mm.
character.ai, I think you can go interact with Steve Jobs, but like, what if his estate licenses the ability to build these things like these influencers have done with Meta? I assume there's a licensing deal that's allowing them to use their character and personality and things within these tools. So it's just, that's why I say like for me this is so broad in terms of its implications that like the ability to build stickers, the ability to talk to these 20 people, like that's interesting, but that's just a prelude of like the much broader way that this stuff is going to be used. And that's the stuff where we keep saying like if you just figure out AI, the fundamentals of it, and you're a domain expert, like the future is constantly connecting the dots. As new things emerge, it's like, what does that mean to you? What does it mean to your company? What does it mean to your industry? And so I think this can be really exciting. It can be overwhelming, and it's okay to have the overwhelming days. But there's just so much potential with stuff like this.
Yeah, and I think it's tempting sometimes for some people to say, okay, maybe in one way or another, I'm not super interested in Meta. Like, I don't use Facebook anymore that much. I'm not very active on Instagram, though plenty of people are. But,
Yeah.
or, oh, I don't really use WhatsApp. Well, billions of people still use these services, Instagram, obviously, but WhatsApp, I mean, is wildly popular and like a linchpin of communication in a lot of non-US countries, both for personal communication and business, like customer service. So globally, there are some incredible implications here. But also, if you're just a business owner, it's like, I'm not active on these platforms. Why should I care? Well, maybe you should ask your marketing person, have you explored these features, right? I mean, even just that question can be really valuable. Are you using Instagram's AI photo editing so we don't have to spend as much time on that or what have you?
Yep. Yeah. And to your point, like you may not use it. Like for me, I don't really use their tools that much, but your consumers do. Like, so you still got to understand it.
Right.
Yeah. And we didn't even get into like their glasses, like the Ray-Bans that are going to record the
Yeah.
world around you. And, so 6 months from now, if you see people wearing black Ray-Bans, you got to wonder, like, are they recording me right now? There's a pretty good chance they are. And everything's just, yeah.